Hey everybody, I thought it'd be interesting today to talk about mistakes and discomfort and the need to try to get out of that discomfort and what that does. And I thought we could talk about this using an example that's literally just happened now, where I've made a mistake and I've double booked my son. I've sort of simultaneously given him to two lots of people. So I'd agreed that he would spend the day with a friend, and on that same day, I'd also arranged that he would spend the day with grandparents. So completely my fault, messed up with the calendar, which is quite a recurring pattern of mine, and we'll end up with one set of people, their day being messed up because both sides have made quite a lot of plans around that. So let's all think about a mistake that we might have made, because we all have, haven't we? And so let's just bring that into mind. What's interesting is once the mistake has been discovered, what happens now? Because it seems to me that this things going wrong, aspects of blame and self-blame and recrimination and implications for self and other people is a rich treasure trove for us in revealing how present, accountable, responsive we can be, or how much protection is necessary, barriers, stabilizing, resistance is going on. So when the mistake is discovered, and there's instantly that feeling, isn't there? You know, we might have messed up in work, or we might have done something that someone's, you know, messed up for someone else. There's that instant feeling of being wrong, isn't there? Being in the wrong. Where do we go with that? Because being wrong, having the possibility of people looking badly at us, feeling responsible for having messed up someone else's arrangements, or their, you know, messing up their happiness, that feeling of being wrong has suffering in it. And in that moment, we feel isolated, don't we? There's this feeling of I've messed up, and these people now think less of me, and therefore here I am suffering. The question is, what now? What happens now? Do we try to get rid of that suffering by stabilizing the idea of ourselves as separate? And I think this is the core question in every moment of conflict, every mistake that's made, every challenge, every threat to the identity. Do we essentially go into survival mode because the suffering is so intense? We feel completely destabilized by that suffering. It doesn't matter if it's even minor things can create that, really press the triggers of our instability, particularly if our childhood has been one where minor things brought about major reactions or insecurity in our lived experience. So in that moment, there's deep instability and there's suffering, and it can look like the way to restabilize and to get rid of that suffering is to go deeper into separation. And then this is our pattern, like that. That's the way that we do this life and death thing. Is like we try to stabilize the idea of ourselves. And we can do that, it seems to me, two ways, either by making them wrong or making me wrong. So they're wrong and I'm better, I'm protected in that way. So for example, in this, I like, even though it was so obviously entirely my bad organization, I could see my mind trying to come up with idea, like sort of almost like suggestions of, well, they didn't remind me enough, or they, it wasn't 100% arranged by then. They were a bit vague, not. I could see these things come in, and like the mind could have grabbed hold of them as a way of making me stable and making them the villain. But actually, through presence, there's that instant thought, well, is that really true? No, 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 no. So that, but when we haven't got presence in that moment, because we've been so triggered by this instability, the mind can grab hold of these things so easily. Yeah, well, I messed up, but it's because they XYZ. So easy to do that. And so logical, so understandable. Or, and this is something we might not consider really, but or we try and get rid of the suffering through stabilizing this sense of ourselves as broken, as wrong, as incapable. Really interesting that, because any identity will do as an identity. Even the identity like, oh, I'm useless, I'm hopeless, or I mess up all the time, I always get this wrong. That is a stabilizing identity, even though it's 100% negative. It's firming up an idea of ourselves as something. So the identity under threat can survive, it looks like, in a stabilized version of itself, which is one of being hopeless, useless, incapable, hateful, not worthy. These things come in there because they're stabilizing, ironically. And what we can see is both of these what would we say, that they're both instinctive reactions of a mind body identity under threat. They both serve to exit the situation, and instead of moving deeper, so instead of really just sitting in that discomfort of making a mistake and the discomfort of possibly someone annoyed with us in that moment, instead of like sitting there without the attempt to get rid of it, just being uncomfortable in reality, experiencing the physicality of that discomfort and maintaining connection with everyone involved, because that's sane, that's reality. When there's connection maintained because nothing has been broken, when there's intense feelings and they are held and honored and had, and when there's an openness to continue listening, to really hear what solutions could be from other people, that's sane. And that's the in a way, that's how this mind-body system continually upgrades itself to learn to be accountable for ongoing ways of doing stuff that is dysfunctional and which is causing problems for other people, and finding ways around those. That's sane. That's how the system learns. Whereas the attempt to get rid of that suffering, excuse me, is insane, is dysfunction, is about reinforcing separation. And it's like building an ivory tower around this identity of ours that has is an exit from reality, basically. Nothing is learned. There's no accountability, really. Even if we're in the midst of self-flagellation, that's not accountability, that is ego. But staying present in the discomfort more and more and more and more and more until our lives really are like an openness to discomfort and interest in it. What will be learned here? And that's ultimately where change comes from. Yeah, how connection is maintained. Yeah, so thank you. Lots of love. Bye.